start this build, I wanted to take the hypercar we made before and turn it into something completely different. This time the idea is a rally raid Dakar-inspired version of the car. Basically, I wanted to take this low, aggressive hypercar and give it the same kind of off-road special edition treatment you see in cars like the Lamborghini Sterato or the Porsche 911 Dakar Special. Through one of the comments, we also decided the car would be named after the Dutch word for dragonfly, libelle. That's probably, rather, it's not pronounced the correct way, but we'll stick with it. The thing we do first is to raise the suspension visually using the advanced trim settings. I'm not changing the actual engineering yet. I'm just trying to get the stance looking right before designing around it. And immediately it makes a huge difference. If the car still sits like a normal hypercar, none of the off-road parts are going to feel believable. After that, I start looking for wheels. At this stage, I'm not really looking for the final choice. I'm just trying to get the right vibe. I go for something more simple and utilitarian, because that immediately feels more off-road to me. Then I adjust the rim and tire proportions so the wheels look smaller and the tires look chunkier. Big wheels and thin tires work on a road car, but for this kind of build we need more sidewall. Otherwise it just looks like a supercar wearing hiking boots. I need to change this script now. I also switch the tires from being semi-slicks to proper chunky off-road tires, and that is simply because semi-slicks won't work when we're out in the desert. Once the stands, wheels and tires are in a decent place, I move on to the body design. The first big thing is wider arches. Cars like this need those big plastic arch extensions to sell the off-road look. Without them, it just looks lifted. With them, it starts looking intentional. So I go through the mod fixtures, test a few shapes, and eventually find flares that work nicely with the body. A lot of this is just experimenting, moving things around, rotating, checking if they work better for the front or the rear. The full design process took over 3 hours, so this part is heavily cut down. If it looks like I make decisions quickly here, trust me, I did not. Once I find the right rear arch shape, I use some special mod pieces to remove parts of the original bodywork, so the old wheel arch doesn't show through. Then I fill the empty space behind it with black 3D fixtures, so it looks like a proper widened wheel well instead of a broken hole in the car. After that, I do the same general idea on the front, using a slightly different flare shape that fits the front bumper and fender area better. Then I go back into the advanced trim settings and push the wheels out visually, because now that the arches are wider, the wheels need to fill them properly. With the basic shape sorted, a good foundation so to say, I move on to mud flaps. I add them to both the front and the rear, and even though they're simple, they do a lot for the look. I place skid plates underneath the car, and honestly, most people probably won't notice them later, especially if I export this to BeamNG. But I know they're there, and sometimes that's enough to make me happy. Next, I start working on a front bash bar. I wanted something protective and a bit Dakar-inspired, something that made the front feel tougher. For this, I used these experimental pipe-style fixtures. They are extremely powerful, but also extremely annoying. I've seen other automation creators do absolutely crazy things with these, but for me, I just can't make it work. But if you master them, you can basically build any custom shape you want. Automation is already a sandbox, but these pieces turn it into the whole Sahara Desert. I also add a chunkier support piece behind the bar, adjust the radiator, and add visible fans to make the front look more mechanical and functional. After that, I add some side protection. As you can see, this isn't a rock crawler, but the side still looked a bit too streetcar-like, so the extra protection helps toughen up the profile. I also start experimenting with the body color, and as always, I'm colorblind, so this is not some genius color theory moment. I'm mostly just clicking around it if something looks good to me. After adjusting the interior paint, I move on to the roof rack. And at this point I was still thinking of the car of a more... It was more of a crazy adventure build. Something like a rich person's terrible idea for a camping trip. Then I add some skis on the side of the roof box. Is it realistic? Not really. Unless you want to go skiing in the sand dunes, which I've seen some crazy TikTok videos. After all that, I decided I wanted to go into the interior and make some modifications. Originally, I planned to keep this simple. I was just going to add a fire extinguisher and move on. But as we already know, I can't really do simple. So after I added the fire extinguisher, I added some extra jerry cans. Simply because any proper off-road car needs extra fuel in case you get stuck somewhere. What makes less sense is putting 6 of them directly in the passenger seat, but I did it anyway. After that, I decided it needs a spare tire. Since the car is rear-engined, I put the spare in the front trunk. To make it fit, I removed the original front vent design and create a cutout so the tire sits down into the body. Then I add an antenna, because if this thing is supposed to be somewhere in the desert, it needs some way to communicate when everything inevitably goes wrong. And after that, things go crazy. I decided to build a full interior custom roll cage. And that is because people asked me before on my Instagram and in the comment section about how to do a good roll cage. And honestly, it's not as complicated as it looks. There are roll cage mods on the workshop, but they don't always fit every car, especially weird builds like this. So I usually build them myself using basic pipe fixtures. I take the pipe, I change it into the color I want, in this case white, and then place the pieces so they follow the lines of the cabin. It doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is to make it look believable from a normal viewing distance. You can see some parts clipping through the interior a bit, but honestly that's fine. You can spend hours trying to make every millimeter perfect, or you can accept that good enough is sometimes actually good enough. So after some trial and error, this is the version I went with. It makes the interior feel much more serious and much more motorsport inspired. At this point, the design is basically finished, and the next step is the livery. A livery can completely save a car, but it can also ruin it, so I try to keep it tied to the theme and the main body color. For this car, I use a lot of red, white and black sponsor decals. That is because white and black work with almost anything, and the red ties into the body color, or at least I think it does. One annoying thing with some of these older decals is that the text doesn't mirror properly. If I mirror it from one side to the other, the text becomes reversed, so I have to manually place everything on both sides. This means the livery takes way longer than it looks. But once the livery is done, I change the wheels again. The previous ones worked, but now that the car looks more like a proper race concept, they didn't have enough presence. So I chose these wheels, which I'm pretty sure are based on the Porsche Carrera GT wheels, and I paint them white. After that, I start doing the final nitpicking details. The first is the intake. Since the normal side intakes sit low on the car, they would probably suck in a lot of sand in the desert. So I make a Snorkel style intake, but with more of a racing look. I run a pipe toward the engine bay, make a very questionable connection inside, and then I add an exposed air filter at the end. Is it realistic? Probably not, but does it look cool? Absolutely. Near the end, I wanted to try a second version without the roof rack. So I saved the roof rack version, made a new copy, removed the roof rack, and I fixed some other small things that broke along the way when I copied the car. And honestly, I think this cleaner version works better for the more serious Dakar racer style. And now the design is finally finished. And this is the final result. So, before the video ends, I also want to show a few AI assisted pictures I made of the finished car. These are based on my own screenshots and my own design. And then I used AI to place the car into more realistic looking scenes. I know AI is a controversial thing, especially when it comes to art and creative work. So I want to be as transparent as possible about it. I'm not trying to take credit for someone else's car design or steal another creator's work. The actual car is still something I built myself in automation, and the AI images are just a fun way to present it in a different setting. I'll show them together here at the end so you can see exactly what I mean. Let me know in the comments what you think about using AI like this for car renders, because I'm genuinely curious where people stand on it. And with this, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.